Hey, so I was having a discussion with a friend of mine, and he was telling me how this generation, a lot of kids have problems reading, and a lot of teachers are quitting. And I looked into it, and oh my goodness, I think we might be cooked. I'm seeing here this YouTuber, great channel, a homestead journey. I was watching some of this, and I was like, this can't be real. And I want to just watch it with you to share my opinion on the matter, that I think sometimes some people don't really address the nuance and don't really call it out how it is. Probably just trying to be nice or trying not to make anybody angry, but I think sometimes you have to be truthful. Anyways, without further ado, let's take a look.
Many teachers quitting right now.
Teaching in the year 2025 is not the same career as it was teaching before the pandemic.
I don't know what's happened to education. It breaks my heart.
I feel like we are reaching a point where something's got to give, and I don't know that we can keep going like this.
Puts two hands up like this close to my face, and goes, psh, 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 psh. These kids are horrible. Horrible.
Why?
So I'm gonna just interject here real quick, and a lot of this problem is a lot of this is coming from the parents not really teaching their kids. Now, I'm not attacking the ones that are having difficulty and are single parents, because there's some sacrifices there. I'm talking about the average that is just letting tablets, letting TV pretty much raise your kid. And what you end up with is you get very disrespectful, very ill-mannered kids. And that's why I think that's happening. So I just want to make sure to not put all the blame on the kids. A lot of it is on the parents. I don't think did a great job raising their kids.
Why do I need to know any of this if a computer or AI can do it for me?
But what's happening now is on a whole other level.
I have 2 hours left of my school day, and I'm leaving because
The AI thing is a whole other can of worms.
so stressed out.
This is going to be one of those videos that I'm going to lose my shit in.
So the moral decline of this country is obvious, but I really haven't stopped to consider what teachers are really going through nowadays. I mean, you see on the news all the time what's going on in schools, and you can only imagine what's going on in the classrooms.
I'm asking for a friend. How am I supposed to teach for 30 more years? How?
Teachers are quitting mid-year again, at record numbers. Is one of the reasons why. A student who wasn't assigned to me or my classroom was let into my room by another adult, a teacher's aide, and repeatedly ignored my direction and instructions to leave. Eventually, she repeatedly called me and threatened me with physical violence, which sent me into a panic attack. I called the office for support, and as soon as the dean of students showed up to my classroom, I left and I went to the stairwell to go cry and have a panic attack. Once I calmed down, which took my entire lunch, I was expected to go back and teach my classes because we had a sub shortage and nobody could cover my classes for the rest of the day.
Now, I don't think, the fact that if someone threatens violence on you, there's no way that no one's doing anything. This situation here, this example, it's very strange to me, because and then she's saying that there's a person in the room, an adult, that's letting this happen. So this one really threw me off. It almost doesn't seem plausible.
By the end of the day, the videos that the student took of me circulated amongst the student body, and I ended that day sitting at my desk feeling the most powerless and defeated that I've ever felt in my entire life. The student was not given a consequence that was fitting. She was sent home for the day. That was it. I received no apology, no restorative circle from the student or the adult who let them into my classroom, and the paraprofessional received no disciplinary actions. He stood in my classroom and allowed his student to speak to me in a degrading, violent, and disrespectful manner. After that class period was over, I had several students come up to me and say that they wanted to jump to my defense, but they were also afraid of that student, and afraid of for their own safety. That's when I knew the profession I once loved was no longer the profession I needed or wanted, and I left a month later. And that story is not unique. Teachers aren't leaving because they don't care about the kids. They're leaving because the system no longer lets them teach kids. They're not allowed to teach self-management. They're not allowed to teach respect or accountability anymore. We are told to keep the peace, keep the bodies in the room. Some are even told to pass at 20%.
That's kind of insane. At 20% pass, then you get people that can't function in society. And good for her for going and getting something better. I think, they really don't pay teachers enough. And on a little tangent, I think a good way to improve government would be to pay government officials a teacher salary. And I think that will help get rid of a lot of people that just have a love for power. And they would bring in people like teachers that do something because they love it. Because most teachers don't teach for the money. They teach because they find purpose in teaching the next generation. And, they find fulfillment, which is very honorable in my book. And it just goes to show, I think any position that governs kids, should have a lot to give the person that is putting their time and effort into nurturing the next generation.
Get the kid the diploma. Pass them along so that the data looks good. But when we do that, we're not protecting the students. We're doing them a disservice because they are walking into a world that will hold them accountable. We could have taught them how to handle that with grace, empathy, and reflection. But instead, we're told to look the other way. Teachers quitting mid-year every single year is not an exodus. It's self-preservation. And deep down, it's heartbreak because they want to stay. The system is just making it so that staying is at the expense of yourself and your own family.
I subbed for 8th grade today, and it was awful. And I don't even really want to talk about it. It was bad. They're unhinged, and they're chaotic, and it's frustrating because I can't do my job. I can't help them be successful because they won't let me. It was such a bad day. It's such a bad day. I'm in such a bad mood.
I start second.
Oh, I remember back in the day, substitute teachers didn't get too much respect because we knew that they were temporary, and the teacher that was there every day in and day out, you had some sort of rapport with. And subs usually got the brunt of it. But I can't imagine what it is like nowadays, where they don't respect the regular teacher. I'll assume subs are treated even worse.
A quarter of high school with my sophomores, asking them to go big in their heads. Like, dream your biggest dream. Is your dream to be signed with the NFL, win America's Got Talent, get a full ride scholarship for a university, become the first brain surgeon at the age of 18, win NASCAR? And I do this for a specific project, but whatever. Over the years, these answers have given me a lot of insight as to what's going on with a generation. 10 years ago, everybody talked about wanting to go to college or wanting to get into an internship, and that was really a focus. 5 years ago, it felt like so many people wanted to be doctors and nurses. I think that maybe had something to do with the pandemic, but the last 5 years have been awfully rough on our young people. They are growing up now during a time where the youngest of Gen Z, who are just getting in through high school, are the ones who are really seeing a world that does not have a lot of hope in it. And it's showing in their answers. Instead of dreaming of accomplishing things, instead they have things like, I won $2 billion. I won the lottery. I just won a new truck. I won the lottery. I won the lottery for $2.5 billion. I got $100 million. I won $1 million on Family Feud. There's a handful of kids in there who said things like, I wanted to cure cancer, or I got drafted into a certain team. But the majority of them were all about getting money quickly. We've lost the ability for our young people to dream of doing something and being successful at something in this world. And instead, what they see is exactly what the adults of the world have offered them, which is the only way you can survive is to have a lot of money. Forget hope, forget dreams, just get cash. And I am so disappointed, not in these kids, but in us as an older society who have built a world that's all kids can dream about. So one, Adults, this is my call to you to do better. Offer hopes and dreams. And Gen Z, I need you to know there is still hope in the world and that chasing what you really love is worthwhile.
Okay, this is becoming...
So it's incredibly sad, but I think this is also a symptom of the social media age. They see a bunch of fake influencers just showing that they have a lot of money, and a lot of them is just all fake, all renting mansions just to show that they have a lot of money, just to get more views, to get more money. And they see that and they think that is that they will be the exception, that they can do that, and that only works for like a small percentage of people. Yes, you can be very successful, but I don't know, any influencer that tries to make money by flaunting their wealth, I can't think of a positive thing to say about them. And that is the nicest thing I will say about them. I don't think they do any good for society whatsoever. There's a few other things I hate, like the whole OnlyFans thing and the other things where people give money just, not for good content, but for someone just like showing them something and showing them how to live with like a lot of money, and then they try to sell them something. We're not really showing them how to get there, barring the people that try to sell, courses to get to something, which is a whole other thing. I'm not saying they're all scams, but I'm saying the majority are very bad. And the one thing I will bring up that I don't really agree with too much, the whole thing to get into college, I think parents need to really understand that college isn't as affordable as it used to be. Also, they need to keep in mind when they tell their kid to go to college that they're not forcing the kid to do something they don't want to do. And get in debt and then have to get another job and never use their schooling. Because at the end of the day, you are more likely to succeed if you do something you love. All right, and I think if you take any college course, I think you should take something that is the broadest if you can't decide on a particular one, so that it can apply to more things once you're finished. Because nothing worse than starting your life with debt, and I wasn't fortunate enough to be in a family where the finances were not bad, so I didn't even have the option for college, and I wasn't no valedictorian or anything, so there was no scholarships, but I did learn quite a few things from my dad's work ethic and my mom's work ethic, and I think that's more important than some kid looking at some screen at some influencer just showing them their brand new shiny car.
A genuinely concerning issue. As a substitute teacher, I am encountering a really concerning number of students who truly do not see any value in learning, because as one of the 4th and 5th graders that I was teaching the other day asked me, why do I need to know any of this if a computer or AI can do it for me?
That's the whole thing about AI, which is incredibly scary. I think AI is a tool that can be used for good, but right now it's being used incredibly badly. And there's already studies I looked into that are not showing good results on people that use AI a lot. Think about it like, back in the day, you knew people's numbers because you had to memorize them. And now they're on your cell phone, and then you don't have to worry about remembering them. You just click on the person's name, boom. And, a lot of people don't have that memory anymore because, you don't use it, you lose it. I think it's somewhat the same, where they're just going to ask for answers and they're not going to gain anything from the process of getting to the answer, which is a little bit frightening on what it can do to young minds.
A little girl didn't want to learn how to read because why would she need to when she could have the computer read it to her? Why would she need to know how to count when a calculator could do it, or when she could just take a picture of her math problem and have the AI do it for her? This is a legitimate issue because if for whatever reason we lose the ability to have access to these things, we have an entire generation of kids who's going to be entirely helpless without the internet, and that is not okay. If you as a parent are encouraging this behavior and allowing your child to use AI for everything, you have a problem and you need to be teaching them otherwise.
This is the real me, and
this is an AI replacement. The background is real,
the AI character is not.
But we can flip it.
Real person,
this
AI
is also
background.
reality.
We can go anywhere.
A message to anyone out there who thinks that teachers have it easy just because we have time off. I have 2 hours left of my school day and I'm leaving because I'm so stressed out. Between all the requirements that a district offers and the students' behavior, their lack of trying, their apathy for school, parents that don't give a shit, they don't care, they don't answer phones, they don't discipline their kids, and kids who feel like they're going to commit suicide because they're getting bullied. You have no idea what it's like being a teacher. You have no idea. I don't want to hear a person ever in the history of ever say that this job, we're lucky, we have it easy, we get so much time off. You have zero clue what all it takes to be a teacher.
Sometimes 100% agree with her. I can't believe anyone saying that that job is easy when you have to deal with a bunch of students that are basically don't want to do anything, don't want to learn. Also, that are brought up in the worst way possible when it comes to being respectful.
Pick up your child.
These kids, I don't understand how they ended up to this point. You know what I mean?
And another thing is, you also, if you try to reprimand a child, the child goes and tells the parents come, and they blame the teacher, which is insane. And I know that sometimes it is the teacher's fault, but 9 out of 10 of these scenarios is usually the kid's fault, and then the kids, they go and they spin the situation to where it actually didn't happen that way, making the teacher look bad, and then the parents come and yell at the poor teacher, which is absolutely ridiculous. I was so afraid back in the past if my teacher called my parents, because I know that my parents were going to believe my teachers over me when it comes to behavioral and other things. There's no respect for the profession that I'm seeing from this newer generation.
I mean, like, I teach 8th grade history, and I have 110-ish students. 2 of them are reading on grade level right now. 18 of them are at a kindergarten level. 55 of those students are between a 2nd and 4th grade level. That's a lot of them. And that's typical of what I've seen lately from students. But it's not just literacy. It's not just literacy, and it's not just like lack of content knowledge. It's not just critical thinking skills. It's basic thinking skills. My students can decode almost nothing. They cannot apply inference. They cannot process questions that are longer than a sentence. They cannot connect cause and effect. They can't track multi-step ideas like in a political cartoon. And it's scaring me a little. Like, I see it every single day. I had a kid yesterday, 4 kids actually, this happened in every class. We were doing guided notes, supposed to be a real easy day, it was review. They wrote down, Maryland was founded as a safe haven for Catholics. It was on the board, they wrote it down, and before we moved on, I call on a student and I ask, hey, where were the Catholics one more time? And these students, what they do is they look at me, and then they look at their notes, and then they look at the board. They look back at their notes. And some of them never answered me. They never figured out the answer. It was wild. And I kept giving them hints, like rephrasing the question and saying, like, it's in your notes. We just wrote it down. We just wrote it down. Where are the Catholics? It's on the board. And they never got it. They can't read their own notes. Not, and I don't mean their handwriting. I mean, like, they can't make heads or tails of it on the page. I had a kid today. I have these extra credit assignments, 3 of them. They're on the wall. They could turn it in at any time. And I think they're pretty easy. Like this one, and it replaces your lowest daily grade. So like end of the quarter, lots of these start to roll in. This one says, on a separate sheet of paper, choose 4 principles of the Constitution, and for each one, write what it means in your own words, an example of how it works in the U.S. government today, and a personal example, how that principle might show up in your own life, school, or community. I wrote them an example, and I labeled it, do not use the example, and I even gave them a checklist at the bottom. Make sure you have these 4 things so you can get full credit before you turn it in. Make sure you have the 4 principles and the meaning and the examples. Make sure it's 1 full page. And this student just turned it in, and I read it. First of all, they don't write it on a separate sheet of paper. I've only had 1 kid this year do that. They just write like in the spaces of the instruction, like in the margins and stuff. Very bizarre. But like they just don't do the assignment. It's like they don't understand because it's not written in like a multiple choice format. This is exactly what this student wrote. They wrote the principle's definition in the student's own words. They rewrote the instructions. The whole thing. Even the example where it says, do not use this example, they just copied the instructions and wrote them again. And then
This is truly frightening because not only can they barely read, they can't follow instructions, but I think something that's not brought up here that's probably the cause of this, which was another study I looked into, is that social media and doom scrolling is actually making our attention spans shorter. Now, if you're older, the effect isn't as bad, but if you've been growing up with tablets and phones, your attention span is pretty much a goldfish's, or even less so. And I think that's why they're basically a deer in the headlights when you ask them to recall things, because it enters the brain and it leaves immediately. And that is really scary because I really fear for the kid's going to go to school and he's going to be surrounded by all these influences, and I'm really, really hoping that, nurture beats nature in this case, because this is insane. This is incredibly bad. But I'm going to end it here because this is about an hour video, and I don't want to watch the whole video since it's another person's work, and I want to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and link the channel in the description, so you can go ahead and see the full thing. I think they have a great channel, a homestead journey. I think they could do a great job. And if you guys have anything you want me to talk about in the future, go ahead and comment and leave me suggestions below. And I hope you all have a great rest of the day.